Adopted dragon hatchling refuses to sleep without human mechanic son. The reason shocked everyone. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The metal walls of Outpost Station Gamma 9 creaked and groaned under the pressure of the asteroid belt it floated through. Inside, Jason Price wiped the sweat from his brow as he finished repairing yet another oxygen recycler. Dad, come quick. 8-year-old Tyler Price burst into the maintenance bay, nearly colliding with a stack of repair parts. His small face was flushed with excitement, blue eyes wide beneath a mop of unruly brown hair. Jason set down his wrench with a sigh. As the head mechanic for the remote mining station, his to-do list never seemed to end. What is it this time, Tyler? I told you I need to finish these repairs before shift change. But Dad, the Draconis ship just docked. Their ambassadors are here. Can we go see? Please. Tyler bounced on his toes, practically vibrating with energy. Jason checked his watch. The arrival of representatives from the Draconis Imperium was indeed a significant event. First contact with the reptilian species had occurred only 5 years ago, and relations were still in their diplomatic infancy. This visit to the human-operated mining station was meant to be a gesture of goodwill. All right, 5 minutes, Jason conceded, unable to resist his son's enthusiasm. But then I've got to get back to work. Tyler whooped and grabbed his father's hand, pulling him toward the observation deck. Since his mother's death 2 years ago in a shuttle accident, Tyler had grown increasingly fascinated with space and its many inhabitants. Jason worried sometimes that the boy used this fascination to escape from his grief, but the station's counselor had assured him it was a healthy coping mechanism. They arrived at the crowded observation deck just in time to see the Draconis delegation emerge from their sleek, iridescent ship. The reptilian beings stood nearly 8 feet tall, their scaled bodies gleaming under the station lights. Most were dark green or blue, with elegant crests running from their heads down their spines. They moved with surprising grace despite their imposing size. They looked just like the dragons from my stories. Tyler whispered in awe. Don't let them hear you say that, Jason warned gently. They call themselves the Draconis, but they're a highly advanced species with technology that surpasses our own in many ways. They're here on important diplomatic business. The station's administrative staff greeted the delegation formally. Captain Sarah Morgan, the station commander, stepped forward to welcome the lead ambassador. The tall, emerald-scaled diplomat inclined his head respectfully. On behalf of the Draconis Imperium, I, Ambassador Varen, extend greetings to Outpost Station Gamma 9. The ambassador's translator device conveyed in slightly mechanical English. We come in peace and with curiosity about your mining operations. Humanity welcomes the Draconis delegation, Captain Morgan responded. We're honored to share our technologies and methods with our new galactic neighbors. The formal pleasantries continued, but Tyler's attention had wandered. He tugged at his father's sleeve and pointed toward the Draconis ship. Dad, look. What's that? Jason followed his son's gaze. A smaller Draconis, perhaps half the size of the others, had emerged from the ship. Unlike the stately diplomats, this one moved with quick, darting motions. Its scales were a vibrant copper color that seemed to catch and reflect every light. Most notably, it wasn't wearing the formal attire of the delegation, but was instead draped in what appeared to be a simple cloth. I think that's a young one, Jason murmured, surprised. The Draconis were notoriously private about their family units and reproduction. Few humans had ever seen a juvenile of their species. Before Jason could stop him, Tyler had slipped away, weaving through the crowd toward the copper-scaled youngster. By the time Jason pushed through the throng of observers, Tyler was already standing before the young Draconis, the two of them regarding each other with mutual curiosity. Tyler, Jason hissed, reaching for his son's shoulder. The copper-scaled creature tilted its head, examining Tyler with large, golden eyes. Then, to Jason's astonishment, it extended a clawed hand and made a series of chirping sounds. Hello, Tyler responded with a smile. I'm Tyler. What's your name? The young Draconis chirped again, then looked expectantly at Tyler. "I don't think it understands English," Jason said, kneeling beside his son. "And it doesn't seem to have a translator like the adults do." Suddenly, one of the Draconis diplomats noticed the interaction and strode over, his face, if you could call it that, showing what Jason interpreted as alarm. The diplomat spoke rapidly in their native tongue to the young one, who responded with what sounded like a defiant chirp. "Apologies," the diplomat said through his translator. "The hatchling should not have left the ship. It is not proper protocol." "No harm done," Jason replied. "My son was just curious. We don't often see young Draconis." The diplomat seemed uncomfortable. "This is unusual circumstances. The hatchling's clutch bearers were researchers who perished in an accident within your solar system. As is our custom, the offspring became ward of the state. It accompanies our delegation until permanent arrangements can be made." Jason felt a pang of sympathy. "I understand. My son lost his mother 2 years ago." Tyler, meanwhile, had pulled a small metal puzzle toy from his pocket and was showing it to the young Draconis, who watched with fascination as Tyler manipulated the interlocking parts. "Tyler has the same one," a small voice suddenly said in halting English. Jason and the diplomat both stared at the young Draconis in shock. "You speak our language?" Jason asked. The copper-scaled youngster nodded. "Learning from ship data. Not supposed to tell." The diplomat made a sound that Jason's translator didn't catch, but which seemed to be a reprimand. The young one lowered its head briefly before looking back at Tyler. "I'm Kira," the hatchling said. "Can we play?" Before the diplomat could intervene, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed, and Captain Morgan's voice came over the intercom. "All personnel to emergency stations. Incoming asteroid fragment on collision course. Impact in 10 minutes. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Chaos erupted on the observation deck as both humans and Draconis scrambled to respond to the threat. The diplomat grabbed Kira's arm. "We must return to our ship immediately." "Wait," Jason said, thinking quickly. "Your ship is docked on the impact side of the station. You won't have time to disengage and clear the danger zone. Follow me to the central core. It's the most fortified section." The diplomat hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Lead the way, human." Jason scooped up Tyler and began pushing through the panicking crowd, feeling the Draconis close behind him. As the station's head mechanic, he knew every corridor and shortcut. They raced through maintenance tunnels and emergency passages, the sound of the alarm growing more urgent with each passing minute. They reached the central core with moments to spare. Other station personnel and Draconis delegates were already crowded inside the reinforced chamber. Captain Morgan was coordinating emergency responses, her face tense but controlled. "Brace for impact," someone shouted. Jason pulled Tyler close, pressing the boy's face against his chest. He felt rather than saw the young Draconis, Kira, huddle against them, seeking comfort in the face of danger. The impact, when it came, was both more and less than expected. The station shuddered violently, metal screaming as it bent and twisted. Emergency lights flickered, and for a heart-stopping moment, the artificial gravity faltered. But the central core held, its reinforced walls protecting those inside. When the initial shock passed, Captain Morgan's voice cut through the frightened murmurs. "Damage assessment teams, report to your sections. Engineering crews stand by for emergency repairs." Jason reluctantly released Tyler. "I need to help with repairs," he told the boy. "Stay here where it's safe." "I want to come with you," Tyler protested. "No, son. It's too dangerous." Jason looked around and spotted the Draconis diplomat who had been with them earlier. "Excuse me, but could you watch my son while I assist with repairs? I'm the head mechanic, and they'll need me." The diplomat seemed taken aback by the request, but nodded stiffly. "The child will be safe with us." Jason knelt to look Tyler in the eye. "Stay with the Draconis delegates, okay? I'll be back as soon as I can." Tyler nodded reluctantly, his small hand still clutching Kira's clawed one. The young Draconis had remained silent throughout the ordeal, golden eyes wide with fear. Jason joined the emergency repair teams, and what he found was grim. The asteroid had torn through the station's outer hull, depressurizing several sections. The primary power core was damaged, forcing them to rely on backup systems. Worst of all, the oxygen recyclers he'd been repairing earlier were now critically compromised. For 12 grueling hours, Jason and the other mechanics worked to stabilize the station. They sealed breaches, rerouted power, and jury-rigged systems to keep everyone alive. By the time Jason stumbled back to the central core, exhaustion had seeped into his very bones. The sight that greeted him stopped him in his tracks. Tyler and the young Draconis, Kira, were curled up together in a corner, fast asleep. Tyler's arm was thrown protectively over the copper-scaled hatchling, while Kira's tail had wrapped around Tyler's leg. They looked, despite their obvious differences, like two children finding comfort in each other's presence. "They have been like this for hours," the Draconis diplomat said quietly, approaching Jason. "The hatchling refused to be separated from your offspring." "Tyler," Jason corrected automatically. "My son's name is Tyler." The diplomat inclined his head. "Tyler," he repeated carefully. "Our young one is called Karakithal, though your son has been calling it Kira." "Is Kira a boy or a girl?" Jason asked, realizing he didn't know. "Neither, yet," the diplomat replied. "Draconis do not determine their gender until adolescence. Until then, they are simply hatchlings." Jason nodded, too tired to fully process the information. "Thank you for watching over them." "It was educational," the diplomat said. "I have never seen a hatchling bond so quickly with another species." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "The damage to your station is severe. Our sensors indicate it will take weeks to fully repair, even with our assistance." "Yes," Jason sighed. "We've stabilized the critical systems, but we're running on backups. The mining operations will be suspended indefinitely. Our delegation will remain to offer assistance," the diplomat stated. "It is the least we can do, as you risked yourself to ensure our safety during the crisis." Over the next several days, humans and Draconis worked side by side to repair the damaged station. The initial diplomatic formality gave way to a more practical cooperation as both species contributed their unique skills and technologies to the effort. To everyone's surprise, Tyler and Kira became inseparable. The young Draconis followed Tyler everywhere, learning human games, expressions, and behaviors with remarkable speed. Tyler, in turn, was fascinated by Kira's abilities. The young Draconis could see in near darkness, climb walls with special gripping pads on hands and feet, and had a photographic memory that allowed for rapid language acquisition. "Dad, Kira can recite the entire station maintenance manual after reading it just once," Tyler exclaimed one evening as Jason tucked him into bed. Kira was curled at the foot of the bed, golden eyes watching them interact. "That's impressive," Jason acknowledged, still amazed by the unlikely friendship. "But it's time for both of you to sleep. We have another busy day tomorrow." As Jason turned to leave, Kira made a distressed chirping sound. The young Draconis scrambled up from the foot of the bed and curled tightly against Tyler's side. "Kira doesn't like to sleep alone," Tyler explained. "Can we leave the light on, Dad? Kira gets scared in the dark." Jason frowned slightly. From what he'd learned about the Draconis, they were naturally nocturnal and quite comfortable in darkness. "Are you sure about that, buddy?" Tyler nodded emphatically. "Kira told me." "Right, Kira." The young Draconis chirped in agreement, golden eyes wide and pleading. "All right," Jason conceded. "Light stays on low. Good night, you two." This pattern continued for several nights. Each time Jason would put Tyler to bed, Kira would insist on staying, curled protectively around the human boy. If separated, the young Draconis would become agitated, making distressed sounds until allowed to return to Tyler's side. The behavior didn't go unnoticed by the Draconis delegation. One evening, as Jason was finishing his shift, Ambassador Varen himself requested a private meeting. "We have observed an unusual attachment between your offspring and our ward," the ambassador stated without preamble once they were alone in a small conference room. "Yes, they've become good friends," Jason agreed cautiously. "It is more than friendship by human standards," Ambassador Varen said. The hatchling has formed what we call a kairavash, a guardian bond. It is extremely rare and typically only occurs between hatchlings and their biological parents or designated caretakers. Jason frowned. What exactly does this bond mean? The hatchling has, for reasons we do not fully understand, recognized your son as someone to be protected at all costs. This explains why it refuses to sleep without him nearby. The ambassador's expression was unreadable to Jason's human eyes. Our scientists are fascinated by this development. It has never before been documented between a Draconis and another species. Is it dangerous? Jason asked, concerned. Not dangerous, no, but potentially problematic. We are scheduled to depart in 3 days, once the critical repairs to your station are complete. The hatchling must come with us. Jason felt an unexpected pang at the thought. Over the past weeks, he'd grown accustomed to Kira's presence in their quarters, to the sight of the young Draconis and Tyler huddled together over books or games. Tyler would be devastated by the separation. What happens if they're separated? He asked. The ambassador hesitated. The breaking of a kairavash bond can be traumatic for a hatchling. In some cases, it has led to developmental issues or psychological distress. But there is no alternative. The hatchling must return to our homeworld to be placed with a suitable Draconis family. That night, Jason watched Tyler and Kira as they slept. The young Draconis had one wing-like arm draped protectively over Tyler, and both children appeared peaceful. He couldn't bear the thought of telling Tyler that his new friend would be leaving soon. Even worse was the knowledge that the separation might actually harm Kira. The next morning, Jason was called to an emergency in the station's communications array. When he returned to their quarters that evening, he found Tyler in tears and Kira making distressed chirping sounds. What happened? He asked, kneeling beside them. They're taking Kira away. Tyler sobbed. Ambassador Varen told Kira they're leaving tomorrow. Dad, you can't let them. Jason pulled his son into a hug. I'm sorry, buddy. I knew they'd be leaving soon, but I thought we had a few more days. But Kira needs to stay with me. Tyler insisted. Kira told me about the guardian bond thing. It's important, Dad. Jason was surprised. Kira told you about the kairavash? The young Draconis nodded, golden eyes filled with what Jason could only interpret as fear. Must protect Tyler, Kira said in halting English. Feel it here. The hatchling placed a clawed hand over the center of its chest. Why Tyler? Jason asked gently. There are many Draconis who could be your guardians. Kira's copper scales seemed to dim slightly as the hatchling looked down. Tyler understands. Both lost parent. Both alone. Tyler not afraid of Kira. Tyler needs protecting too. The simple explanation hit Jason like a physical blow. Of course, both children had experienced profound loss. Both understood what it meant to have your world shattered in an instant. They had recognized in each other a kindred spirit, a shared pain that transcended species. Dad, please, Tyler begged, tears streaming down his face. Don't let them take Kira. We're family now. Jason sat heavily on the floor beside them, his mind racing. I don't know if there's anything I can do, buddy. Kira is a Draconis citizen. They have their own laws and customs. Then we'll go with Kira, Tyler declared with the absolute certainty only an 8-year-old could muster. We can live on their planet. Jason shook his head. It's not that simple, Tyler. I have my job here, and humans can't just move to the Draconis homeworld. As Tyler continued to plead, an idea began to form in Jason's mind. It was outlandish, possibly even professionally suicidal, but he couldn't dismiss it. That night, after finally getting the children to sleep, Kira once again refusing to leave Tyler's side, Jason requested an urgent meeting with both Captain Morgan and Ambassador Varen. The meeting was set for early the next morning in the station's main conference room. Jason arrived early, nervously reviewing the notes he'd prepared on his tablet. When Captain Morgan entered, followed by Ambassador Varen and 2 other Draconis officials, Jason stood respectfully. This is highly irregular, Price, Captain Morgan said, her expression stern. You better have a good reason for calling this meeting. I believe I do, Captain, Jason replied, trying to keep his voice steady. It concerns the young Draconis, Kira, and the Kairavash bond it has formed with my son. Ambassador Varen's scaled brow ridges rose slightly. You are aware of this matter? Yes, Ambassador. And I'd like to propose a solution that might benefit everyone involved. Jason took a deep breath. I want to formally request permission to adopt Kira as my ward. The room fell silent. Captain Morgan stared at him as if he'd grown a second head. Ambassador Varen remained perfectly still, only the slight flaring of his nostril slits indicating his surprise. Explain yourself, the ambassador finally said. Jason activated his tablet, displaying the research he'd conducted overnight. The Kairavash bond is sacred in Draconis culture. Breaking it could cause Kira significant trauma. Additionally, both children have experienced the loss of a parent and have formed a powerful connection through that shared experience. He swiped to the next screen. I've reviewed the preliminary cultural exchange treaties between humans and the Draconis Imperium. There's a provision for mutual cultural immersion experiences to foster understanding between our species. What better cultural immersion than having a young Draconis raised alongside a human child? Ambassador Varen exchanged glances with his colleagues. What you propose is unprecedented. So is a Kairavash bond between a Draconis and a human, Jason countered. This could be a unique opportunity to study such a bond and to build true understanding between our species, not just through diplomatic niceties, but through shared family experience. Captain Morgan frowned. Price, have you considered the practical implications? You're a single father working long shifts as our head mechanic. How would you care for two children from different species? I've thought about that, Jason admitted. I'd need help, certainly. Perhaps we could arrange for a Draconis cultural attaché to be stationed here, someone who could advise me on Kira's specific needs and education. As for my work schedule, I'm willing to make whatever adjustments are necessary. The Draconis officials conferred among themselves in their native language, the conversation too quick and complex for Jason's translator to keep up. Finally, Ambassador Varen turned back to Jason. Your proposal is interesting, human, but there are many factors to consider. The hatchling's biological needs, educational requirements, cultural heritage, these cannot be dismissed. And there is the matter of your qualifications as a guardian for a Draconis youth. I understand your concerns, Jason said. I'm not suggesting this would be simple or easy, but I believe it would be worth the effort for Kira's sake. Captain Morgan leaned forward. Ambassador, if I may. Jason Price is one of our most reliable crew members. He's raised his son alone for 2 years under challenging circumstances, and Tyler is a bright, well-adjusted child despite the loss of his mother. If any human on this station could handle this responsibility, it's Price. Jason shot her a grateful look. Ambassador Varen was silent for a long moment. We will need to consult with our government. This is not a decision I can make unilaterally. In the meantime, our departure will be delayed. It was more than Jason had dared hope for. Thank you, Ambassador. As the meeting adjourned, Captain Morgan pulled Jason aside. You're either the bravest or the craziest person on this station, Price. Do you really know what you're getting yourself into? Jason thought about Tyler and Kira, curled together in sleep, finding comfort in each other's presence despite the vast differences between them. No, he admitted. But sometimes the most important journeys start without a map. For the next 3 days, the Draconis delegation remained on the station while their government deliberated on Jason's unprecedented request. Tyler and Kira, blissfully unaware of the diplomatic complications they had created, continued their inseparable routine. Jason observed them closely, noting how Kira seemed to position itself between Tyler and any perceived danger, how the young Draconis would check the boy's food before allowing him to eat, how their sleeping arrangement always featured Kira in a protective posture. It was during one of these observations that Jason noticed something odd. Kira, who supposedly feared darkness, actually seemed more alert and comfortable when the lights were dimmed. Yet every night, the young Draconis insisted on keeping a light on, supposedly for its own comfort. Tyler, Jason asked one evening, why does Kira really want the light on at night? Tyler looked up from the game he and Kira were playing. I told you, Dad. Kira's scared of the dark. Jason crossed his arms. Son, Draconis can see better in darkness than humans can. I don't think Kira is afraid at all. Tyler and Kira exchanged a guilty look that confirmed Jason's suspicion. Kira knows I'm afraid of the dark, Tyler finally admitted. Ever since Mom died, I've been scared to sleep without a light. But I didn't want to tell you because I thought you'd think I was a baby. Oh, Tyler, Jason sighed, kneeling beside his son. You could have told me. There's nothing wrong with being afraid sometimes. Protect Tyler, Kira said simply. Tyler says dark scary. So Kira says dark scary too. Then Tyler not feel bad. Jason felt his throat tighten with emotion. The young Draconis had pretended to fear darkness, something completely unnatural for its species, solely to protect Tyler's pride. The Kairavash bond was even more profound than he'd realized. On the fourth day, Jason was summoned to meet with Ambassador Varen. The Draconis diplomat's expression was, as always, difficult for Jason to read, but there seemed to be a new quality to his gaze. Our government has reached a decision, the ambassador stated once they were seated in the small conference room. It is not one I expected. Jason tensed, preparing himself for disappointment. The Draconis High Council has approved your petition, with conditions, Ambassador Varen continued. You will be granted provisional guardianship of the Hatchling Caracathal for a period of 1 standard galactic year. During this time, a Draconis observer will be stationed on this facility to monitor the hatchling's development and well-being. Jason could hardly believe what he was hearing. They approved it? Provisionally, the ambassador emphasized. After 1 year, the arrangement will be reevaluated. If the hatchling is thriving and the Kairavash bond remains strong, permanent adoption may be considered. Thank you, Jason said, his voice thick with emotion. I promise I'll do everything in my power to give Kira a good home. Ambassador Varen leaned forward slightly. There is something you should know, human. The council's decision was influenced by an unexpected factor. Medical scans of the hatchling revealed something our scientists initially missed. The reason for the Kairavash bond may be more complex than we thought. What do you mean? Jason asked, suddenly concerned. That information is being compiled for you now. You will receive a full briefing before we depart. The ambassador rose, signaling the end of the meeting. Prepare yourself and your son. This journey you have chosen will not be an easy one. Jason returned to his quarters with mixed emotions, elation at the approval, apprehension about the ambassador's cryptic warning, and a growing sense that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't possibly anticipate. Jason didn't have to wait long for the promised briefing. That same evening, a Draconis medical officer arrived at his quarters, carrying what appeared to be a data tablet adapted for human use. I am Medical Officer Sevik. The blue-scaled Draconis introduced himself. His translator rendered his voice in a surprisingly soft tone. I have been instructed to explain certain matters regarding the hatchling Caracathal. Tyler and Kira were playing in Tyler's room, their laughter occasionally drifting through the closed door. Jason invited the medical officer to sit at their small dining table. Ambassador Varen mentioned something unusual in Kira's medical scans, Jason prompted. Sevik activated the tablet, bringing up a complex, three-dimensional model of Draconis physiology. The hatchling possesses a rare genetic variation that occurs in less than 0.1% of our population. We call it the Vekaran adaptation. Jason studied the highlighted areas on the model. What does this adaptation do? It enhances certain empathic capabilities, Sevik explained. All Draconis possess a degree of empathic sensitivity. It is how our social structures function. But those with the Vekaran adaptation experience it more intensely, particularly with regard to pain and fear in others. The medical officer rotated the model, zooming in on what Jason assumed was the Draconis equivalent of a brain. In essence, the hatchling can literally feel your son's emotions, especially negative ones, as if they were its own. Jason sat back, stunned. So the Kairavash bond is likely a response to this shared emotional state, Sevik confirmed. Your son experienced trauma with the loss of his mother. The hatchling, already predisposed to empathic connection through the Vekaran adaptation, lost its own parents, and then encountered your son, another orphaned offspring experiencing similar emotional patterns. The bond formed as a mutual protection mechanism. Mutual? Jason asked. I thought Kira was protecting Tyler and drawing comfort from him simultaneously, Sevik said. The bond works both ways, even if the hatchling perceives its role as primarily protective. Jason ran a hand through his hair, trying to process this information. Is this why the council approved my petition? Because of this genetic variation? Partially, Sevik acknowledged. Historically, those with the Vecran adaptation have struggled in traditional Draconis society. Our species values emotional control and reserve. Those who experience emotions too intensely, especially the emotions of others, often find it difficult to integrate. So they think Kira might actually be better off with us? Jason asked incredulously. The council believes this unusual situation may, paradoxically, be beneficial for the hatchling. Your son provides emotional stability through their bond, and human society is generally more accepting of emotional expression than Draconis culture. Sevik paused. However, there are challenges you should be prepared for. For the next hour, the medical officer outlined the specific needs of a growing Draconis, dietary requirements, temperature preferences, developmental milestones, and educational necessities. Jason took careful notes, increasingly aware of the enormous responsibility he was taking on. One final matter, Sevik said as he prepared to leave. The observer who will remain on your station is me. I have been assigned to monitor the hatchling's development and to assist you in its care. I will also serve as cultural liaison for both the hatchling and your family. Jason felt a wave of relief. Thank you. I have a feeling we'll need all the help we can get. Indeed, Sevik agreed, his translator conveying what might have been dry humor. The raising of any offspring is challenging. The raising of one from another species is unprecedented. After Sevik departed, Jason sat alone at the table, staring at the notes he'd taken. The reality of what he'd committed to was finally sinking in. He wasn't just providing a home for an orphaned alien child. He was taking responsibility for a being with unique genetic traits that made it an outlier even among its own kind. Dad, Tyler's voice pulled Jason from his thoughts. His son stood in the doorway, Kira peering over his shoulder. Is everything okay? We saw that Draconis doctor leave. Jason managed to smile. Everything's fine, buddy. He was just telling me more about how to take care of Kira. It looks like our family is officially growing by one. Tyler's face lit up. Really? Kira can stay with us forever. Well, for at least a year to start, Jason clarified. After that, we'll see. Kira chirped excitedly, copper scales gleaming as the hatchling darted forward to stand beside Tyler. Stay with Tyler. Protect always. Jason nodded, studying the young Draconis with new understanding. I know you will, Kira. And we'll protect you too. That's what families do. The first major hurdle came just 3 weeks after the Draconis delegation departed, leaving Sevik behind as observer. Jason was working a night shift when his communicator buzzed with an urgent message from Tyler. Dad, his son's voice was tight with panic. Something's wrong with Kira. Jason raced back to their quarters, finding Sevik already there. The young Draconis was huddled in a corner of the room, copper scales dulled to a muddy brown. Kira's breathing was rapid, and the hatchling's normally bright golden eyes were clouded and unfocused. What happened? Jason demanded, kneeling beside the trembling form. I woke up and Kira was making these weird sounds, Tyler explained, hovering anxiously nearby. Like crying, but different. Sevik ran a medical scanner over the young Draconis. The hatchling appears to be experiencing acute empathic distress. Has anything unusual occurred? No, Jason began, then stopped as a realization struck him. Wait, today is the anniversary of Lisa's death, Tyler's mother. I've been so busy I almost forgot. Sevik's gaze sharpened. The child has been experiencing grief emotions. I've been sad thinking about Mom, Tyler admitted in a small voice. But I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to make Dad sad too. You attempted to suppress your emotional response, Sevik stated. For a being with the Vecran adaptation, Sensing such suppressed emotions can be particularly distressing. The hatchling likely felt your grief but could not locate its source, creating a state of confusion and alarm. Jason put an arm around Tyler's shoulders. Buddy, it's okay to be sad about Mom. You don't have to hide those feelings from me or from Kira. But Kira feels it too, Tyler protested. I don't want to hurt Kira. At the sound of Tyler's voice, the young Draconis stirred, golden eyes focusing slightly. Tyler, hurt inside. Kira managed, the hatchling's voice weaker than usual. Cannot find. Cannot fix. I'm sad about my mom, Tyler explained, kneeling beside his friend. It's okay, Kira. It's just something humans feel sometimes when we miss people we love. Jason watched in amazement as Kira's scales slowly began to brighten, returning to their normal copper hue as Tyler continued to talk openly about his feelings. The young Draconis gradually relaxed, reaching out to place a clawed hand against Tyler's chest. Heart hurts, Kira said, but not sick. Just missing. That's right, Tyler confirmed. It's called grief. Later, after both children were asleep, Kira curled protectively around Tyler as usual. Jason consulted with Sevik in the living area. Will this happen every time Tyler feels strong emotions? He asked, concerned. Not necessarily, Sevik replied. The hatchling was distressed primarily because the emotions were being suppressed. As your son learns to express his feelings openly, and the hatchling becomes more accustomed to human emotional patterns, such incidents should decrease. Jason sighed. I never realized how complicated this would be. Interspecies relationships rarely are simple, Sevik observed, but they can be remarkably rewarding. As the weeks passed, Jason developed new routines to accommodate their expanded family. Kira required higher ambient temperatures than humans found comfortable, so Jason installed a heat lamp in Tyler's room. The young Draconis needed a diet rich in certain minerals, which Sevik helped synthesize in appropriate forms. Most challenging was addressing Kira's educational needs. The young Draconis was intellectually advanced in some areas, but completely unfamiliar with basic human concepts in others. 4 months into their arrangement, an incident occurred that tested their unusual bond in unexpected ways. Tyler had started attending the station's small school again, with Kira reluctantly agreeing to stay with Sevik during class hours. On this particular day, Jason was called to the school by an urgent message from the teacher. He arrived to find Tyler sitting outside the classroom, face bruised and eyes downcast. Inside, the teacher was attempting to calm 3 other children, all showing signs of a recent altercation. Mr. Price, the teacher, Ms. Barrett, greeted him with evident relief. I'm afraid there's been an incident. I can see that, Jason replied, kneeling to examine Tyler's bruised cheek. What happened, son? Tyler kept his eyes fixed on the floor. They were saying things, Dad, about Kira. They called Kira a monster and said we were freaks for living together. Jason felt a surge of protective anger. And then, I told them to take it back. When they wouldn't, I pushed Malik. Then they all started hitting me. Ms. Barrett sighed. Physical violence is against school policy, regardless of provocation. I'll need to speak with all the parents involved. I understand, Jason said, helping Tyler to his feet. I'll take him home now. As they walked back to their quarters, Jason tried to find the right words. Tyler, I know you were defending Kira, but fighting isn't the way to handle these situations. But they were wrong, Dad. Tyler protested. Kira isn't a monster. No, Kira isn't, Jason agreed. But people often fear what they don't understand. Our family is different, and that makes some people uncomfortable. When they reached their quarters, Jason was surprised to find Kira already there, pacing anxiously, with Sevik watching nearby. The hatchling became agitated approximately 15 minutes ago, Sevik explained. It insisted that Tyler was in danger and demanded to return here immediately. Tyler hurt. Kira darted forward, golden eyes wide as the young Draconis examined Tyler's bruised face. Who did this? Kira will protect. It's okay, Kira, Tyler said, though his voice wavered. Just some kids at school. Dad says fighting isn't the answer anyway. Kira made a sound that needed no translation, pure indignation. Should protect better, the hatchling said, scales darkening with what Jason now recognized as distress. Failed Kairavash. No, Kira, Tyler insisted, grabbing his friend's clawed hands. You didn't fail. You can't be with me every second. And anyway, I'm okay. Jason exchanged a look with Sevik. Could Kira sense that Tyler was in trouble from across the station? The empathic range of the Vekaran adaptation is not well documented, Sevik replied. But it appears the bond between them may enhance such capabilities. That evening, after treating Tyler's bruises, Jason sat down with both children for a serious conversation. We need to talk about what happened today and how we'll handle situations like this in the future. Tyler nodded solemnly, while Kira remained pressed against his side, still visibly distressed. First, Tyler, while I'm proud that you wanted to stand up for Kira, violence isn't the answer, Jason said firmly. Words are always better than fists. But they wouldn't listen, Tyler protested. Then you walk away and tell an adult, Jason countered. Fighting only gives them more reason to think we're different in a bad way. He turned to Kira next. And Kira, I understand you want to protect Tyler, but you can't leave your lessons with Sevik without permission, even if you think Tyler needs you. The young Draconis's crest flattened against its head, a sign of distress or disagreement. Kairavash means always protect. Always. Protection takes many forms, Jason said gently. Sometimes the best protection is teaching Tyler how to handle difficult situations himself. He needs to learn and grow, just like you do. Kira considered this, head tilted in the now familiar gesture of deep thought. Protect by letting grow stronger? Exactly, Jason confirmed. You support each other, but you also need to let each other become independent. That's how both of you will thrive. As the 6-month mark of their arrangement approached, Jason received notification that representatives from both human and Draconis authorities would be visiting the station to conduct a formal evaluation of their family situation. The news filled him with anxiety. Despite the progress they'd made, there had been challenges. Kira's occasional empathic distress episodes, the school incident, and the ongoing adjustment to their unique family dynamic. What if they decide to take Kira away? Tyler asked fearfully when Jason explained the upcoming visit. They won't. Jason tried to sound more confident than he felt. We're doing well, and Kira is happy here. Sevik will tell them that. Kira, who had been listening intently, moved closer to Tyler. Not leaving. Promise. The day before the evaluation was scheduled, disaster struck the station once again. Jason was in the maintenance bay when the emergency alarms blared. Unlike the asteroid impact months earlier, this time the danger came from within, a catastrophic failure in the station's primary coolant system. All personnel evacuate levels 3 through 5 immediately, Captain Morgan's voice commanded over the intercom. This is not a drill. Coolant leak detected in main engineering. Repeat, evacuate levels 3 through 5 immediately. Jason's blood ran cold. Level 4 included both the school and their family quarters. Tyler and Kira would be in class now, right in the danger zone. He sprinted toward the nearest elevator, only to find it locked down as part of the emergency protocol. Cursing, he redirected to the maintenance tunnels. As head mechanic, he knew the fastest routes through the station's infrastructure. Halfway to level 4, his communicator buzzed. It was Sevik. Price. I have located the children. The Draconis' normally calm voice held an edge of urgency. They were evacuating with their class when the emergency bulkheads deployed. They are trapped in Corridor 4C with 3 other students and their teacher. Trapped? Is the coolant leak near them? Jason demanded, fear gripping his chest. Negative, but sensors indicate the leak is spreading. The atmosphere in their section will become toxic within approximately 20 minutes. Jason forced himself to think professionally despite his panic. I'm in the maintenance tunnels heading toward level 4 now. There's an access point near Junction 4, C3. I can reach them that way. As Jason navigated the narrow tunnels, he could hear Captain Morgan coordinating the station-wide response. Emergency teams were attempting to contain the leak, but the damage was extensive. Evacuation to the emergency shuttles was being prepared as a contingency. Finally reaching the access panel near Corridor 4C, Jason forced it open and squeezed through into the main hallway. Ahead, he could see the sealed emergency bulkhead. Through its small window, he spotted Ms. Barrett and several children, including Tyler. "Dad," Tyler shouted when he saw Jason, his voice muffled by the thick barrier. "I'm going to get you out," Jason called back, already examining the manual override panel beside the bulkhead. To his dismay, the circuitry had been damaged, likely by a power surge during the initial coolant system failure. Ms. Barrett approached the window on the other side. "The air's getting harder to breathe in here," she reported, her calm voice belied by the fear in her eyes. Jason activated his communicator. "Sevik, I've reached them, but the manual override is damaged. I need another way to open this bulkhead." "I am reviewing the station schematics," Sevik replied. "There may be." The communication cut off abruptly as the station's power fluctuated. Jason swore under his breath, then froze as he realized something. "Where's Kira?" he asked, scanning the faces visible through the window. Tyler's expression changed to one of confusion. "Kira was right here, I thought." He looked around, then back at Jason with growing alarm. "Dad, I don't see Kira anywhere." A terrible thought struck Jason. If Kira had sensed Tyler's distress and tried to find another way to reach him. "Tyler, listen to me," Jason said urgently. "Did Kira say anything about trying to help before disappearing?" Tyler's eyes widened. "Kira said something about smelling the bad air coming from somewhere else. That was right before the doors closed." Jason's heart sank. If Kira had gone toward the source of the coolant leak in some misguided attempt to stop it. He activated his communicator again, desperately hoping it would work. "Emergency team, this is Price. I need to know if anyone has seen a young Draconis on level 4, possibly heading toward the coolant leak source." After an agonizing moment of static, a response came through. "Price, this is Morgan. We've got unusual readings from Junction Box 4, F7, near the primary coolant manifold. Something's interfering with the automated systems there." Junction Box 4, F7 was dangerously close to where the coolant leak had originated. If Kira was there, the young Draconis was in immediate danger. But Jason couldn't leave Tyler and the others trapped either. "Captain, I've got children trapped behind a sealed bulkhead in Corridor 4C. The air quality is deteriorating. I need an emergency team here now." "Understood. Diverting a team to your location. ETA 3 minutes." It was the best he could hope for. "Tyler, help is coming. Ms. Barrett, keep everyone as calm as possible and breathe shallow if the air gets worse. I have to find Kira." Tyler pressed his hand against the window. "Dad, be careful." Kira was really scared, not for itself, for everyone. With a nod, Jason raced back into the maintenance tunnel, navigating toward Junction 4, F7. The further he went, the more he could smell the acrid tang of the coolant gas, even through his emergency breather mask. The chemical was corrosive to human tissue with prolonged exposure. He had no idea what effect it might have on Draconis physiology. Finally reaching the junction box, Jason was met with an astonishing sight. Kira was there, copper scales dulled to a sickly brown, using clawed hands to manually manipulate the junction's control circuits. The young Draconis had somehow wedged its small body into the access panel and was redirecting power flows with remarkable precision. "Kira," Jason called, approaching cautiously. The air here was visibly clouded with coolant gas. The young Draconis's head snapped up, golden eyes clouded but recognizable. "Jason, help Tyler." "Emergency teams are getting Tyler out," Jason assured the hatchling. "What are you doing, Kira? This area is dangerous." "Fixing," Kira replied, voice raspy from the caustic air. "Can redirect coolant flow. Seal leak." Jason was stunned. The station's automated systems had failed to contain the leak, yet this alien child, was attempting to manually rewire the junction box to accomplish what the emergency protocols could not. "How do you know how to do this?" he asked, moving closer to see what Kira was doing. "Watched you fix things. Memorize station schematics from your tablet. Draconis remember everything we see." Kira paused, coughing harshly. "Almost done. Need to connect final circuit." Jason could see what Kira was attempting now, a brilliant, if desperate, solution. By redirecting the power flow and reprogramming the junction box, the young Draconis was creating a makeshift containment field that would seal off the damaged section of the coolant system. "Let me help," Jason said, kneeling beside Kira. Together, they completed the final connections, and the junction box hummed to life with renewed purpose. Almost immediately, emergency lights throughout the corridor shifted from red to amber. "Containment successful," Captain Morgan's voice announced over the intercom. "Coolant leak isolated to Section 4F. Air scrubbers engaging. All personnel remain at emergency stations." Jason turned to Kira, who had slumped against the wall, breathing labored. "You did it, Kira. You saved the station." The young Draconis managed a weak chirp. "Tyler's safe now." "Yes, Tyler is safe. But we need to get you to medical right away." Jason carefully gathered Kira into his arms, alarmed at how light and limp the young Draconis felt. By the time they reached the medical bay, Kira was barely conscious. Dr. Wells, the station's chief medical officer, immediately called for Sevik, who rushed in moments later. "Coolant exposure," Jason explained as they placed Kira on an examination bed. It was trying to contain the leak. Sevik's normally impassive face showed clear concern as he ran a scanner over Kira's body. "The hatchling's respiratory system is severely compromised. The coolant has caused chemical burns to the breathing membranes." Tyler burst into the medical bay then, having evidently escaped whoever was supposed to be watching him during the emergency. "Kira," he cried, rushing to the bedside. At the sound of Tyler's voice, Kira's eyes fluttered open, golden gaze fixing weakly on the human boy. "Tyler's safe," the young Draconis whispered. "Good. You dummy," Tyler said, tears streaming down his face. "You didn't have to do that. You could have died." "Kairavash," Kira replied simply, as if that explained everything. For the next several hours, Sevik and Dr. Wells worked together to treat Kira's injuries. Tyler refused to leave Kira's side, holding the hatchling's clawed hand and talking quietly. It was nearly midnight when Sevik finally approached Jason with an update. "The hatchling will recover," he said, his translator conveying a tone of genuine relief. "The damage was severe but not irreparable. However, full healing will take time." "Thank you, Sevik, for everything. There is something else you should know," the Draconis medical officer added. "The evaluation team arrived during the emergency. They witnessed everything, the hatchling's actions, your response, the boy's dedication. They have been observing from the moment the alarms first sounded." Jason's eyes snapped open. "They're here? Now?" Sevik nodded. "They wish to speak with you. They are waiting in Captain Morgan's office." Reluctantly leaving Tyler with Kira, Jason made his way to the captain's office. When he entered, he found Captain Morgan seated behind her desk, with two figures standing nearby. A stern-looking human woman in a formal diplomatic uniform, and a tall Draconis with silver-gray scales that indicated advanced age. "Mr. Price," the human representative began without preamble. "I am Director Harrington of the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Commission. This is Elder Tezik of the Draconis High Council." Jason nodded respectfully to both. "I understand you witnessed our emergency situation." "Indeed," Elder Tezik replied, his translator rendering his voice with a gravelly quality. "We observed most illuminating behaviors." Director Harrington consulted her tablet. "Mr. Price, your petition for permanent guardianship of the Draconis hatchling designated Karakathal was scheduled for formal review tomorrow. However, in light of today's events, we have reached an accelerated decision." Jason tensed, preparing himself for disappointment. "The petition is granted," Elder Tezik stated, "with no further probationary period required." Jason stared at them in shock. "Granted? Just like that?" "There is nothing just like that about it," Director Harrington said, though her stern expression had softened slightly. "We've been monitoring your family situation for months through Medical Officer Sevik's reports. Today merely confirmed what those reports suggested, that the bond between your son and the hatchling is genuine and beneficial to both. The hatchling displayed extraordinary courage and intelligence today, Elder Tezik added. Such qualities are highly valued in Draconis society. More importantly, it demonstrated the true nature of the Kairavash bond, not merely protection in the moment, but a deeper commitment to the well-being of all connected to its bonded one. Jason returned to the medical bay in a daze of disbelief and joy. Tyler had fallen asleep in a chair beside Kira's bed, his hand still holding the young Draconis's clawed one. Kira was awake, golden eyes clearer now, watching Tyler sleep with an expression of contentment despite the medical apparatus helping it breathe. "How are you feeling?" Jason asked softly, approaching the bed. "Better," Kira whispered, voice raspy but stronger than before. Tyler stayed. Talked until sleep came. "He was worried about you." "We all were." "Sorry for scaring," Kira said. "Saw how to fix." "Had to try." "You did more than try. You saved a lot of lives today." Jason pulled his chair closer. "Kira, I just spoke with some very important people from both human and Draconis governments." The young Draconis tensed slightly. "Must leave." "No," Jason said, feeling his throat tighten with emotion. "Just the opposite. They've approved my petition. You can stay with us permanently. You're officially part of our family now." Kira's copper scales brightened visibly, a ripple of color spreading from head to tail. "Real family. Forever." "Real family. Forever," Jason confirmed, reaching out to gently touch the young Draconis' shoulder. "If that's what you want." "Want," Kira said emphatically, then glanced at the sleeping Tyler. "Both want." "Feel it." "Dad," Tyler murmured, stirring from sleep. "What's happening?" "Good news, buddy," Jason said, including his son in their circle. "The adoption went through. Kira's officially part of our family now." Tyler's eyes widened, instantly awake. "For real? Forever?" "For real. Forever," Jason repeated. Tyler let out a whoop of joy that made Dr. Wells glare at them from across the medical bay. "I knew it. I told you it would work out." Kira chirped happily, scales shimmering with emotion. "Family." Tyler and Jason and Kira. 2 weeks later, when Kira was finally released from medical care, they held a small celebration in their quarters. Captain Morgan attended, along with Sevik, Dr. Wells, and even Ms. Barrett and some of Tyler's classmates, including, Jason noted with approval, the boys who had previously bullied Tyler. "I still don't really get it," one of the boys admitted, watching Kira demonstrate a Draconis game involving complex hand movements. "But it's kind of cool having an alien in our class." "Kira's not just an alien," Tyler corrected firmly. "Kira's my family." Later that night, as Jason tucked both children into bed, they still refused to sleep separately. Tyler asked a question that caught him off guard. "Dad, why do you think Kira bonded with me? Out of all the kids on the station?" Jason considered the question carefully. "Well," Sevik explained that Kira has a special genetic variation that makes it more sensitive to others' emotions. And you both lost parents, so you understood each other's pain. "But it's more than that," Tyler insisted. "When Kira's near me, I feel it too, like I know what Kira's feeling." "Is that the Kairavash bond?" Jason glanced at Kira, who was watching them with those intelligent golden eyes. "What do you think, Kira? Why did you bond with Tyler?" The young Draconis was silent for a moment, scales shifting through subtle hues as it considered the question. "Tyler's heart," Kira finally said. "First human not afraid. First human who felt familiar." "Familiar?" Jason prompted. Kira placed a clawed hand over its chest. "Here. Like stars that make same pattern in different skies. Different outside, same inside. That's why Kira wouldn't sleep without you," Jason realized, looking at his son with new understanding. It wasn't just protection. It was recognition. Tyler nodded solemnly. "We found each other, Dad. Like you always said Mom found you. Across a whole crowded planet." That night, long after the children had fallen asleep, Jason sat in the living area reviewing the formal adoption documentation. The legal language was complex, full of diplomatic clauses and cultural provisions, but the essence was simple. Kira was now part of their family, the first Draconis to be legally raised by humans. As he signed the final forms, Jason reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them to this point. A chance meeting during a diplomatic visit. an asteroid impact that forced cooperation, a genetic variation that enabled empathy across species barriers, and two children who recognized in each other something that adults might never have seen: the universal language of loss, courage, and belonging. 1 year later, the station held a formal ceremony to mark the anniversary of the first interspecies adoption. Officials from both human and Draconis governments attended, along with journalists and xenobiologists eager to document this historic milestone. "They're turning us into a spectacle," Jason grumbled as he adjusted Tyler's formal attire. "Are you sure you're okay with this, buddy?" Tyler grinned, now 9 years old and noticeably taller. "It's fine, Dad. Kira says it's important for other Draconis kids like her." Kira, who had grown several inches as well, nodded solemnly. The young Draconis wore a formal Draconis mantle that had been specially sized for a juvenile, copper scales polished to a brilliant shine. Others with Vekaran need to know. Can find home too. In the years since the adoption, word had spread throughout both human and Draconis space about the unique bond between Tyler and Kira. Research into the Vekaran adaptation had expanded, with new studies suggesting that such empathic abilities might be more common among Draconis youth than previously thought. Several other Draconis with the adaptation had come forward, sharing stories of social isolation and emotional overwhelm that mirrored Kira's experiences. Most significantly, 3 other human families had applied to adopt Draconis children with the Vekaran adaptation, following the model that Jason and Tyler had pioneered with Kira. The applications were still under review, but the mere fact of their existence represented a fundamental shift in interspecies relations. As they made their way to the station's main hall for the ceremony, Captain Morgan stopped them in the corridor. "I wanted to see you 3 privately before all the formal nonsense begins," she said with a warm smile. "I just wanted to say I'm proud of what you've accomplished here. You've changed things, not just for yourselves, but for both our species." Jason felt a surge of emotion that he quickly tried to suppress, only to catch Kira looking at him knowingly. The young Draconis had become remarkably attuned to the emotional states of both Jason and Tyler over the past year, often sensing their feelings before they fully recognized them themselves. "It's okay to feel proud, Jason," Kira said, the hatchling's English now nearly flawless after a year of immersion. "I feel it too." Tyler slipped his hand into Kira's clawed one, a gesture that had become second nature to them both. "We did it together," he said simply. That night, after the ceremony and the interviews and the formal presentations were finally over, Jason found himself once again watching the children sleep. Though they now had separate beds in the same room, a compromise reached after much negotiation. They still maintained physical contact while sleeping, Kira's tail often draped across Tyler's bed, or Tyler's hand extended toward Kira's. The reason that had shocked everyone a year ago now seemed like the most natural thing in the world. 2 souls from different stars, recognizing in each other a kindred spirit, a shared understanding that transcended biology and physics and the vast gulfs of space. Different outside, same inside. As it turned out, that was all that really mattered. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.